With yesterday's decisive U.S. election result that saw Donald Trump win his bid to return to the White House, Canada is now in focus. What does it mean for Canada? There's a lot of issues at stake. On one hand, we're attached at the hip, and benefits in U.S. economic growth tend to benefit Canada, although recently that equation has been a little bit more complicated. There's also the specter of tariffs and the renegotiation of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement, which is set for 2026. For a look at this, we've got Bruce Heyman, who's former U.S. ambassador to Canada. And Bruce, we should fully disclose you wear blue stripes. You are a Democrat. And so I imagine that the results today are quite disappointing.
Yeah, disappointing, but, I'm one of those people who, get back up, brush off, and let's figure out the path ahead, given the new set of circumstances we have. And I'll tell you, I'll just give you this anecdote. When I was ambassador, we had a foreign service officer come in, and I sat down with her, and I said, "So tell me what the challenges are with Canada." And she looked at me, and she said, "Sir, there are no challenges." I said, "What?" As I was thinking about Keystone Pipeline, the Detroit-Windsor Bridge, softwood lumber, my mind was running through all these things. She said, "Sir, there are no challenges. They're just opportunities." And that's how we faced it in the embassy when I was there. And I just think that right now, we're all going to have to come together and think about the opportunity set ahead of us. But without a doubt, it's going to be different. And there are going to be things that are going to come Canada's way that hopefully they're prepared for.
So let's talk about, stick with the opportunities, start optimistically, I guess, and then work our way through the list. There's a lot of chatter about Keystone XL as a revival opportunity. What do you think?
So I think at the end of the day, for me personally, it's all about capital. And if people who have capital want to put capital at risk developing a pipeline for fossil fuels that would take 10, 20, 30 years for payback at this stage of the game, I think that's your capital and capital at risk. And I don't think we should be an impediment to that. On the other hand, I do think that alternative energy is important, and I'm a big promoter of that and worked with a new company out of Montreal, Power Sustainable, and our focus is on sustainable energy and energy development. And I think that over time, these alternative energy sources will be competitive not only price-wise, but will also be competitive for our environment. And so these are really important things to focus on. I think that's where a lot of opportunities may come up, and it may be contrary to what a lot of people think.
Well, so contrary to even the trade today, these green energy stocks are getting crushed. Right. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of anger, quite frankly, in Alberta in particular about potential caps to emissions in that sector, and a sector that really feels kneecapped when it could be an area of growth and has been an area of growth. Are there not lessons to Canada from the United States that when you turn your back on that kind of engine for beliefs that we should be shifting to a more renewable future, you face political consequences?
Look, transitions are never easy. And so the question is it a light switch or a rheostat? And I think transitions of this type have to be more rheostat-like. And so you have to move from one fuel to another over time and in a sensible way. Look, climate change is real. Make no mistake about it. And we see the impact that is happening around the world. But in doing this and tackling climate change, it can't be just government and it can't be just philanthropy. You have to have a competitive method in which we can invest for returns of our money and on our money in addition to affecting the climate. And so these are going to be important things that we're going to have to focus on going forward. But, in the asset management world, we're looking for rates of return on your money in addition to doing good for the planet.
I guess the question is, it's very clear what your belief is and where you're coming from, but the reality of the situation could be very different. I mean, EVs and transition energy require the support of government, and we're looking at a situation where in the United States that might be pulled, regardless of whether you think it should go there or not.
It could be in the short term. There's no doubt. There's no straight line to solving the problems that we have. And there's going to be, steps forward and steps backward. But I believe over the long haul that moving to alternative energy is the right thing for us to do, not only for the environment, but especially economically. We're beholden still on a global price of oil. And that global price is not necessarily set by those of us in North America, regardless of how much we currently produce. It's largely impacted by many nefarious actors around the world. And we have to understand that that is a national security risk as well.
Let's talk about other areas in which Canada might be affected. How aggressive will Trump 2.0 be in renegotiating NAFTA 2.0?
If he imposes tariffs, as he has said that he will do across the board on all imported goods, I don't think that the new USMCA or CUSMCA or NAFTA, whatever we want to call this, is actually in effect anymore. I don't know what a trade agreement, free trade agreement looks like when you have blanket tariffs across the board. So I know everybody's focused on this July of 26, sign off by all three parties. But I think the bigger issue is, does it even exist if he imposes tariffs across the board? If not, and we end up having exemptions for certain areas within Canada or Canada itself, then the importance is what happens in July of 26. And I think the issue is going to be for Canada, Mexico. And there are a lot of problems that the administration coming in will have with Mexico. And they may use this trade agreement as a means of exerting pressure on Mexico, which Canada may actually, unfortunately, feel the pressure from.
When you were on with me in the past, you warned that immigration could potentially become an issue for Canada as Donald Trump moves towards a more conservative stance around immigration, perhaps an even more aggressive stance on deportation.
My personal fear is if you do a roundup of the numbers of people that Donald Trump has said, again, in many of his rallies and interviews, 11, 14 million people, et cetera, even if he begins that process of just doing tens of thousands of people, a lot of people are going to run and get very worried. And so if they run, I don't think they're running south. And I think we have a direct experience with Roxham Road when he was, talking about sending Haitians back to Haiti, that they, came across the border in the most difficult of circumstances in the winter, and the impact on Canada was not insignificant. I think that's a risk here. I can't quantify that risk in terms of numbers or what the impact would be, but it is a risk for Canada, and hopefully your government's getting prepared for that.
And will this change, you think, or do you think, based on the fact that in the next year, Canada has to have an election? Right now, the polls suggest that a conservative government will come to office. That's just as the polls are right now, but as an exercise, I just want to ask you, is Canada in relative better negotiating power if we're conservative at the federal level?
I actually don't think it matters who's at the federal level on negotiating with the Trump team. I think they're going to be completely transactional. I think their negotiating style is going to be very different than what Canada's been used to in the past, even with the prior Trump team. My sense is that what happened before is that we make proposals back and forth. And I was very directly involved with the TPP negotiations and watched how Canada negotiated throughout that process. Delay, contemplate, back and forth, give and take. And that, I don't think, is going to be how the Trump team is going to operate. I think they're going to just say, this is what we're doing and how we're doing it. And Canada is going to have to be in scramble mode on how to respond to that, asking for exemptions, pleading for, different ways of which Canada would like to be approached relative to other, countries in the world. And so it's going to be a real challenge in that respect. And I don't know if it matters which government's there. I think it's just, I'm hopeful that if you do this, you take a whole of government approach, which you did under the last NAFTA negotiations, and you brought, premiers together. You brought members of both parties. I think it's going to take a whole of government approach again if Donald Trump does what I think he's going to do.